Hello. So I was asked if I could do a video kind of just discussing the general bits and parts and how an RC car works. So this is for you. Now, if you were given an RC car for a birthday or Christmas, or just somehow picked one up without knowing really what it was, and you want to figure out how to use it, turn it on, drive it, have fun with it, test it out, see if it's something you like, this video should help, you on your way to either enjoying this as a hobby or even just getting a little bit of fun before you sell it or trade it off and do something else with your life. So here we go. I have one with me today. Let's check it out. So this beautiful piece of machinery here is my Tamiya Rising Fighter. It is a two-wheel drive buggy. These two-wheel drive buggy platforms, not just the Rising Fighter, but any and all of them actually, are really good for beginners and people who just want to dip their feet into it to see if it's something they like, because they are pretty versatile, they can take a little bit of a beating, and they can be pretty quick, so you can have a lot of fun with them. This one is basically stock. There's not really any upgrades on it aside from the brushless motor I put in there, and it's got a bit of a more powerful servo. So let's get into it and open this. Now, most of these hobby grade RC cars have body clips to hold the bodies on, but some of these older Tamiyas use screws. So now that I got it opened up, it's fairly simple inside. So we're going to start here. The steering servo does what it sounds like. It controls the steering. And like I said, this one isn't the one that would have came with it. It's from a different truck, a little bit heavier of a truck. So it works really well in this little buggy platform. Now that is plugged in to this. This is the receiver. The receiver is what takes the input from the controller and tells it what to do. Now, there are several different kinds of controllers out there, but some of them, like this. Now, my controller here has all these different input functions. Now, as you see here, I can have up to 20 different vehicles paired to this remote. Currently I have I've got 10 or 11 of them linked to this controller. Get back on the riser. Now, input from the controller, forward, reverse, and then your steering. It's all fairly easy. Now, when you put that input into the controller, the receiver takes it, and you can see there's different channels on this receiver. Has two auxiliary channels for soundboards, light kits, extra servos if you want to run rear steering. Some trucks have that. They can do four-wheel steering. So the auxiliary channels can be used for those, or light kits. I use them mostly for light kits. Just about all my vehicles have lights in them. Then there's the one for the throttle and one for the steering. Now for the throttle, you can see it's plugged into here. This is the ESC, the electronic speed controller. Now, a lot of the older ones had a mechanical speed controller. It was just this little switch that another servo would hook up to, and when you wanted to give it throttle, you'd push the throttle to go forward, and the servo would move a specific direction to push the little electrode to make the connection to make it go forward or reverse, depending on which way it was set up. These, the electronic speed controllers, it's all electrical. You put the input in, the speed controller knows what it's doing and makes it go forward or backward. This is a brushless ESC. It's got these 3 motor leads that go out to the motor. So there's brushed and brushless. Brushed is just a basic positive and negative lead going to the motor. Fairly simple. You can get very cheap brush systems, the controller and the motor. Very cheap. You can pick them up for anywhere from $20 to $30. This brushless system was $40. I got it. It's a no-name brand. Some people will say you need name brand, but you really don't. I've only had one speed controller failure out of the several dozen of these I've bought and used. I've had very few issues with them, so you can. Now, to not get into in depth, when it comes to brushed motors, the lower the turn number, the faster the motor. With brushless, it's the higher the kV, the faster it is. This one has a 4370 kV brushless system in it, so this one's pretty fast. Now, of course, with the motor, you need to have the right gearing. This motor with the stock gears that came in this buggy work really well. It's pretty fast. It'll get up and move, and it'll do basically what I want it to do. And this thing is just a fun little truck I like to bash around, and it works great for that. Now, batteries. As you can see, I have one in here, but I also brought a secondary one. So this battery right here, and much like all the other batteries that I run in most of my trucks, this is a lithium polymer battery, or a LiPo. Now, there's also lithium ion batteries, there's nickel metal hydro batteries, there's nickel cadmium batteries. I will do a video on the specifics of batteries in the future, but for right now, so with LiPo batteries and any battery in general, the more voltage, the more power. The higher the milliamp hours, or mAh, the longer the runtime. So, this battery, I get probably 15 to 20 minutes at full speed out of this battery. Now, if it's a lithium ion battery or a lithium polymer battery, it will have this little balance plug. On these batteries, you want to make sure that these little plugs are kept in really good shape, because these batteries, if they're not taken care of properly, these ones will cause problems. LiPo safety is something that a lot of people do. Some people forget, and others have lost everything too. Now, all but one of my LiPo batteries is a hard case. It's a hard plastic case around the battery. It's a 2-cell LiPo, so there's 2 battery cells in here, and surrounded by a very hard case. All but one of my battery packs is a hard case. I like it. It's a little bit more rugged, a little bit more durable. I don't have to worry as much when I run these because of that hard casing. But back to this. So I'm going to get the top back on, turn this on, and I'm going to just show you some basic control. So now that the shell's back on, battery's plugged in, I'm going to turn on the controller, and then we'll turn on the truck. Now, older trucks, especially ones with the mechanical speed controllers, they sometimes were very twitchy, and if you turned the truck on before the truck would just take off. Or if you got too far away and the controller lost connection, the truck would just take off. So here are the basic controls for the remote, power button, all your auxiliary switches, your trims, throttle trim, your steering trim, multifunction switch on this one, because this controller, you can come in here and adjust everything, all your settings you can adjust inside here. And again, this controller can have up to 20 vehicles bound to it, so that's how you select which model you want to run. See, I'm using the Rising Fighter. So now steering is pretty simple. Right, left. Of course, if you reverse it, if you wanted to go backwards, if you're lefty, or however, if you just prefer it that way, if you prefer to think in reverse, then you can switch it, but right, left, and then with the throttle, we got reverse, and then we got forward. Now, that can also be switched if you prefer to have, when you push it forward, it goes forward, and you pull it back, it goes reverse. Whichever. Again, this controller, you can change all those settings. Some of the other controllers, you can still change some of the settings, but most remotes, you'll have the throttle trim, the steering trim, your steering rate. If it's a crawler, they'll have the steering rate so that you can control how fast or slow the servo turns the wheels. And you'll have, some of them will have a switch to change the steering from the normal mode as I've shown, or reverse. So now that we covered that, there really isn't much more about these things. They're fairly simple. You just need to know what you have and what you're working with so that way you can figure out how to use it properly. Brushed motors, brushless motors, make sure the steering servo works. You need to get familiarized with your controller, depending on what controller your truck came with or has with it. Because sometimes if you buy something secondhand, it may not have the stock controller that came with it. Somebody may have just bound a regular radio that they had sitting around to it. I've gotten a lot of trucks and trades or buying lots that had remotes that didn't come with them originally, so you just have to be, you have to look at what you got, figure it out slowly, take your time looking at it. If it's something you want to do, something you want to enjoy, just learn what you got. I hope this helped, and if it did, great. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. If you have any further questions about this, if you want to go into something in a little bit more detail, please let me know. You can message, reach out on any of the socials. I will have all the social medias linked in the description below. Reach out on any of them, or just comment right here on YouTube. I try and check them as regularly as every day if I can get to it. Sometimes, it'll sit for an hour or two, but I try and get around to all the comments to make sure that I can respond if you have any questions. So feel free to, like I said, like, subscribe, comment.